Yeah.
All right. So move on to the main topic.
Yeah. Let me see if I can actually bring it up. Oh, it doesn't look like it.
You don't get to know anything. You just get to follow along. Did you have some notes that you wanted to bring in? I hope you had some good notes.
Did you hear that signal?
I did. What did it say? You cannot look at your stuff. Do not try.
I can scroll. Awesome. Okay. Yes. Okay. So we are going to talk about the next segment.
Jason had a premonition guided by Joe's hand. It's a little bit of player agency, probably at some point. But really, my idea was out of character choices that players make that essentially have in-game consequences. I don't mean that in a bad way, but in-game effects. And then how should they be handled, especially if you don't like the effects? And I have several listed. So first, and we brought this up before, you make a character and the character's background. You got a player that writes a book about their character's background and all their exploits before the game even starts. Someone that plans a little bit, maybe a paragraph, maybe a couple of lines. This guy's, he's a forgotten prince from this faraway land. His parents hated him and was actually trying to have him killed many times because they're evil and they didn't want him to, they wanted their next son to have because they liked him better. And then said, let me go on from there. And then people are like, I ain't got a clue, playing a dwarven fighter. Let's see what happens. I may have a name, I may not. I may pull a Jason Connerly and just show up. We'll see what happens. Call me lucky, you know? and so, yeah, I mean, so
all valid.
That, all valid. I'm not talking, this is not one you got to fix.
Right.
But those sort of players, there are consequences. Well, depending on the player, there are consequences of the game for making those decisions.
And depending on the DM.
Yeah, and it may not be consequences that are a problem. I'm just saying, for example, everybody shows up and they're playing Lucky the Dwarf, who has no idea. You know, I don't have a name yet, you know, and I'm picking on Jason a little bit, but I do appreciate it because it is a pain in the butt at times. And I'm playing Lucky the Dwarf, and let's do this. Let's do some adventuring.
Right.
Okay. And you're like, where's the tavern? And where's the job board?
Yeah.
That's likely going to happen.
Let's get to it.
That's what those players are saying.
Yeah.
I don't want character to play some D&D. I want to fight some monsters, take the stuff.
Right.
The guy that does a little planning is like, this is just my feeling. I want to fight some monsters, take some stuff, but I want to get a chance to see how I'm going to role play the fact that my parents wanted to kill me.
Right.
What would you be like? Where the guy that wrote the in-depth background probably handed it to the GM 2 weeks early and said, feel free to use this wherever you want, meaning please use this and make me the central character in one of the sessions. And I'm not poo-pooing that.
Right.
I'm just saying if those aren't the consequences, those are some expectations that I think would be most likely. And of course, what do you get? You get some of all of them, right? The real, some of them. But they all have, I think they have an impact of what's expected.
Right. So question for you.
Yes.
The segment is titled OOC Player Choices. Out of character, and then you put out of game. So are we doing a little of both? Or
right. Well, I guess okay. So I guess I'm thinking out of character player choices. Oh, I see. Delineating as particularly out of game. We can do both. We can do both.
Because out of character can be at the table during the game. Too.
True. Good point. That was just a quick title, so it should have been out of.
Maybe just
player choices. Yeah, player choices, not character choices. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. So good point. Bad title. All right. So
bad,
Randy. So how should this be handled? I don't think it should be. I think you play the game and see what happens. I think if a player is highly invested at my table and they have a book long background, I will read it. I'm not like a lot of players. I'll actually read people's backgrounds and I will try to implement it. I actually, and you've experienced it, my wife loves intricate backgrounds. She doesn't always write them all out, but she tells me for like weeks on end. And so you'll notice that, and this is not right of me, but because she's given me so much information, she gives me ideas. Next thing you know, I have the situation seem to be around her character. Now, for those that don't know this, what I find that Joe does is Joe comes to the table. He might have an idea. I'm an arrogant wizard. I'm a sneaky rogue. He's kind of no planning guy, maybe a little bit. And then he sees where it's going and he goes, oh, and this is an advantage to Joe not planning much. He goes, I'll just jump in this part of the story. I like this part. Or, hey, I'm going to be a foil for this part of the story. And that's good too. So you can still contribute even if you haven't put a lot of time into your character's background.
Right. See, for me, player wise, and just to let you know, there it goes. I'm having computer issues. Anyway, having been the receiver of much character death.
Yes.
When someone wants me to have a background that's more than a couple sentences, I really I don't care for that. Because I don't want to, why do all that work when your character dies? And it can easily happen in D&D with a failed saving throw, a crit, any of that.
Yeah.
Character's gone, and this elaborate thing is wasted. Now, there are a lot of people who will say that everybody should have a detailed background that you hand into the DM. The DM crafts their story according to that, though, and weaves them all together, and then that kind of assures your continued survival somehow. So the DM is supposed to keep you from dying, because it's not about, let's throw down some dice and see what happens. It's about, I have this ultimate story
that needs to be told.
It needs to be told about my character, who is the most important center of the universe that is ever centered, ever. And that's fine if that's the way you guys are playing. That's not how I play, and everybody has a different play style. I prefer much less emotional investment in a character than that. Much less.
I think when Taylor was here, we touched on this.
Yeah.
And I think he hit it pretty good. I think there's an old school mentality where roll up your character, literally those words. Don't do point by. Roll your character up. Let's see what happens. See if this guy gets to be the lucky one, or the DCC approach. Roll up 5 0 level characters. Hopefully one survives this.
Yeah.
And you can be first level. My point, and that fits in nicely in that old school mentality, where your character is not important unless he happens to live to do important stuff.
Correct.
Whereas the new school is, let's tell this cool story about Strahd von Zarovich, and I am the cousin of Tatiana, and Joe is the bard who has been born and bred in Barovia, and we had this connection, and we're friends. And then there's this dwarf guy and his elf companion that come from another world, and we're the only ones in Barovia that will befriend them. And next thing we know, we get caught up in Strahd's machinations. But, and so you're building all this up before the story even begins, and you want to tell this tale. And I have to admit, I've been enamored of that idea in the past, and I'm not against it. If 4 players said, I wouldn't want to do it with 6, but if 4 players said, you and Jenny and Josh and Debbie said, we want to have backgrounds that are fairly close. We're going to hand them to you, and you're going to weave it into a cool tale where our characters are important. I could run that game, even with this, in my mind, the silly caveat of we won't die for bad dice rolls, just randomly bad dice rolls. I could do that. I'm not sure how long I can do that, but I think I could. I could definitely weave the backgrounds together. I've done it. But right now, I lean toward your style.
Right.
I really lean to have players that just see what happens, dude. Roll your character. Let's see what we got.
I'm reminded of a lyric, a song lyric. You think you're in a movie. Everything's so deep. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or book or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Cartoon. Anyway, yeah. So so you start out with almost nothing. And as you progress, if you survive, you add a little bit as things come to you.
Yeah. And the adventures you go on and the cool things, the funny things your character does, like we talked before last time in naming conventions and before, you get bumblebutt because your wizard always fails his deck save or always does something silly at the last minute. You know, he slips on the poo of his familiar, and so his fireball blew the ceiling up. We barely survived that. And those sort of things build your character and build the story. That's the style I like to play. And I'm feel very drawn to now. But yeah, I think any of them can work. I mean, any of them, I've done varieties of those myself.
Yeah, I feel the most important thing about my character is what happens after we start play, not before.
I kind of agree with you. That's kind of where I'm at as well. Let's skip number 2, because this is connected to character background, now character building. So we've talked about character builds before, but choosing a character to play, this is outside of play. So not outside of character, but outside of play. And making those choices definitely can affect the game. So if we have the min-maxers, and I'm not knocking them, say you take something from 3.x where you're playing, the build game with feats and this, and every skill interacts a certain way. I made a little joke, the complete brocane. I used to call the complete arcane the complete brocane, even though it wasn't. That's a book produced by WotC back in the day. But it's just a matter of taking the right stats, the right feats, the right spells, the right magic items, the right classes. And next thing you know, you're the min-maxed fighter wizard that's ever been seen. Versus someone that shows up and says, I said, what am I going to be? Let me roll a dice. Oh, looks like I'm a cleric today. Let me roll a dice. Oh, looks like I'm a halfling. I'm a halfling cleric. What's your strength? 4. What's your wisdom? 10. And I'm a cleric. Let's just roll with it. Right. Those definitely impact the play. Even if it's not even if it's second edition, if you're like, I must put my best stat. I'm a wizard. It must be an intelligence. It cannot be anywhere else. My next best stat must be constitution because I must have hit points. And then it must be this. You're still min-maxing, though I think the effect is lessened.
I think,
go ahead.
So it's not even, and it's gotten to the point where it's not even my bet. Where do I put my best stat? With stat arrays.
Mm-hmm.
Or point buys.
Yep.
Like, where do I put my 14? Where do I put my 13? Where did you put your 14?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the conversations that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some in 3rd edition, there was some kind of enjoyment to the build game.
Yep.
But I think I've gotten a little past that. And I prefer, I think, now to just roll. Now, some people will just be completely random. But if you start with your stats, and then if the system has requirements or maximums or minimums for certain races or classes, then and you start with rolling your stats, it kind of is random. So instead of saying, I want to play wizard, you say, well, I'm going to roll straight down 3d6.
We did that first day of Mudsword.
Yeah.
Well, 46 drop lowest.
46 drop lowest. Either way, I mean, 46 drop lowest will give you pretty good spread. I mean, we proved it with our characters. I mean, my character isn't that great, but Pat's character's got all kinds
of Elven Thief. Oh my gosh, he could have been all kinds of stuff.
Right. So but if you do 3d6 or 46, whatever in order, then it's kind of random what you're going to be.
Sure. Because I gave you the freedom of placing your stats.
Right.
Because the effect on the tip, we've seen the min-max effect in our Elysium campaign. We talked about at Cabin Con, playing Pathfinder a lot and letting people, really just say, and you should probably, if you want to play the game, quote unquote, in quotations, right. The 3.x Pathfinder game is meant to be min-maxed. I mean, it's meant to be, the build game is part of the game. It's a sub game that's part of it. It's important. And if you bring players that are min-maxed, the effect on the table is the DM has to up the challenge, at least the combat challenge. Heck, maybe in a third edition game, maybe the out of character challenge, because if you come in, your half-elf bard's got a plus 22 to diplomacy at 4th level. I mean, he's talking the king out of his shorts if you're a type of table that allows any role to have, do anything based upon the number.
Right.
And if you have a group where it's like, hey, 3d6 right straight down the line, let's just see what happens. Well, look, we got a table of 5 fighters and a rogue.
Yeah.
and the highest strength is a 14. Sweet. Let's see what happens.
See what happens.
And that could be like, well, the DM needs to be realized. Well, it could be TPK City. I mean, if you want to fit the mood, you build the adventure beforehand in an old school type approach. You got the adventure. You're doing Temple of Elemental Evil. If you guys are bringing in 6 fighters with the highest strengths of 14 and a rogue whose dex is 12, I hope you're ready to roll up new characters, because that's probably what can happen.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe you'll get lucky. Who knows?
So being able to have a lot of leeway in character generation, even disregarding the min-max thing.
Right.
Being able to use stat arrays, point by, pretty much guaranteeing you can start with your character concept of, I'm going to play a character who happened, of this race and this class and a background that I've already thought of, and do all that. You can do all of that before you even create your character's stats and everything. My character is this, and then you go in and make the character mechanically. And so being able to do that is a much different situation at the table once you get to it than just sitting down, rolling, getting what you roll and rolling with it. And it requires a different set of personalities of the players.
For sure.
Right.
I'm not sure. I watched our group roll up last week.
There was some
discomfort. There was discomfort with a handful of people. They're like, I don't have a +1 anywhere. I got one +1.
All of us are used to more leeway.
Yep.
And we had someone want to skin their weapon in a way that is probably not conducive to the game that we're making. And but if that's how you want to roll, that's fine, but we're just probably not going to roll that way.
Right.
Anyway,
now, question for you. I think as a DM, and most games do this, they give you choices on how you can build characters, more than one. Well, not most of them. D&D is often giving you multiple ways to roll characters up. Or stat rays. I think as a DM, it's good to, do you think it's good? I think it's good for I'll say it this way. It's good for the DM if he has a way to do that everybody has to do the same exact thing.
Oh, yes. Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Because if you tried it without it, if you said
everyone should be on the same page.
Right. But I'm saying, hey, we're using stat arrays. Nobody gets to roll dice. Nobody gets to pick points. Take the stat array. That's what you're using. Then I know what I'm going to see. Right.
Yes.
And but if I didn't, I think I could be fine. I just think it's more of a player thing. If Joe said I rolled 3d6 straight down the line, someone else said I used the stat array, someone else said I used the 25-point build, and someone else said I rolled 46, dropped the lowest.
Somebody else just said I just wrote stuff down.
Yeah, I wanted to play an 18 intelligence, strength, and dexterity wizard. and okay, I think in old school back in the day, I think I let you guys pick your stats one time. Didn't I do that?
I don't know. You may have.
I may have. I'm sure I killed all the characters. Okay, so that definitely affects play. Okay, let's move back up then. I wrote this down. This was actually the one thing that inspired this. So that's not really and again, we're going to get to some agency stuff in a minute. Splitting treasure. Who gets what and when? So that's often a group decision. And you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing Joe smile, because we've had back in the day, we've had some rows over how treasure should be divided. Our buddy Greg, when I moved to Michigan, made a statement: need before greed. I like that. I like that approach, but that requires a group of players that can accept that.
Yeah, that they're all on the same page. Yeah.
We had a system back when we played early D&D. I want to say it was middle of first edition. And you remember our buddy Jeremy and Ryan, I think those two little culprits created this system, which was fair on paper. It was fair on paper. Everybody gets a choice. And it was a ranked system. So when you got a choice, you drop down. The next person was their choice. And what I mean by choice is you roll up on treasure, you get first pick. If the next treasure is a spell book and you're a fighter, you get it. Or you get, and then they would turn around and try to sell it to the wizard.
Yeah, you get into your room. There's a chest. We open it. The fighter says, "Hey, there's a spell book. How much you want for it? Or how much are you willing to pay me for it? I just picked it up out of this chest. Therefore, you must pay me for it." It's real dumb. They real dumb.
Fireball. That's what I'm paying you for.
I'm paying you with a fireball. Yeah. Oh, but back in the day, fireballs could destroy spell books.
Yes, they could destroy a lot and chests and lots of
all kinds of stuff.
What was it? Things that were not handled had to make item saving throws, and they sucked.
Yeah.
The item saving throws against fire sucked. Yeah, so you would lose stuff. Even if it was magical, you get the bonus. But
Randy was like, "Please cast fireball."
And I was like, with Dragon Breath and Fireball, I think it was a first edition rule. If you failed your save, all your stuff had to save.
Yeah. I remember that.
But my point is, when you decide how to split treasure.
Yeah.
First of all, so besides that weird system and need before greed, have you got any other systems you can recall that you've done in the past that you thought were pretty fair? Or they
Well, in general, the need before greed system is pretty, I wouldn't say universal, but it's close.
Yeah.
The only thing you divide up into shares would be monetary, because that's so the system we were describing earlier is only superficially fair, because it assumes that every time you get a share, it's equal to the other shares that everybody else gets. And that's absolutely not the case.
You mean the system like it's the fighter's turn to get to pick first.
I'll tell you this thing. Yeah.
That's why I put quotations. It's fair, but you're right. Yeah, there's
only superficial.
+5 sword. Wow, I'm going to do the +5 sword.
Right. So you split evenly the monetary treasure, and then you figure out who gets what's best. Now you could boil that down even further and say all treasure is gold.
Oh.
And then when you get back to town, you just convert everything to gold, and then you just buy what you want, which
very 3.x Pathfinder strategy there.
Yeah.
I think you played in a game that was kind of like that.
Kinda.
And I think like in when you played Pathfinder Society, if you got a +1 sword in a Pathfinder Society game, what's that kind of play called? Not
organized play. Organized
play. You'd have to spend your share. It's 2,000 gold piece sword. You'd have to spend 2,000 gold pieces from the money you earned to buy that sword that you found in the adventure.
Yeah, it wasn't Pathfinder's organized play I played in. It was Wizards.
RPGA.
Back in the day, 3rd edition era, and had some good times, but it was kind of wonky. The adventures blew big, huge chunks.
Yeah. Now, I think with treasure, especially, one thing I like about the idea of, because here's kind of a problem with the 3rd edition era games. You say, well, I find a +2 mace, and that should go to the cleric. Wait a minute. I'm a 5th level fighter. I don't have a magic item. The cleric has a magic shield and a magic armor. I should have this.
Yeah.
Even though, but mechanically, with the cleric's got the mace is really good for him. Let's say it's a disruption mace. He can do his cool clericy things. You're a neutral fighter. You're like, okay, I give it up. So I found that sometimes some people end up getting nothing all the time because it doesn't fit their quote unquote build plan, or I'm a specialist in the chain. How many times is there going to be a +3 chain, a magical chain in an adventure, other than just, you say, well, the DM should put it in there. Okay. But that gets a little weird at times. That I'm just, remember we used to even do this too. I think, Joe, you were around. What I would ask you, your magic item wish list. Remember that back in 3rd edition? So that I would give the right magic items for your character. And after a while, I thought that was really stupid. I don't like the idea of it. It worked well mechanically within the game because you would get what you wanted for your character, and you wouldn't have to go turn everything into money and then buy stuff at the magic shop,
right?
Which I don't like the feel of that.
No.
But I like an old school approach where you get what you get. And I mean, I'm thinking when I make treasure, I'll give some specific items out, but if I just do a random piece of treasure, like, oh, should be a magic item here, I'm going to randomly roll it. Well, it's a longsword and it's cursed. Sorry about your luck.
Right.
Oh, look, it's a mace and it's +3. I mean, it'd be better if it was a longsword. Okay. It'd be better if it's a two-handed sword. Okay. It's not. It's a mace.
It'd be better as a thermonuclear launching device.
Okay. That's what it is.
+2.
Yeah. Yeah. But splitting treasure, I think, is a big decision groups have to make. I mean, and we don't consciously say that at our table much anymore, do we?
No, we just, it's understood. We've
I think-
played enough together that when we sit down and play and treasure is there, we're like, yeah, you get this, you get that. We all agree. It hasn't been a problem in a long time.
Right. And if two people really want an item, we say just roll for it. Roll
Right.
D20. And next time, Joe wins the +1 ring protection. He doesn't get the cloak next time, even though he really, really wants it. He goes, I want to roll. We'll be like, Joe, you got that ring.
Yeah.
Give Philip the cloak,
Right.
And
Right.
we'll also, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this is our style of play is almost entirely cooperative, unless a DM wants to throw in a ringer or something. But other people like more contentious play.
True.
So when in that sort of environment, splitting the treasure might be a little more complicated.
Oh, I've seen it turn into fights with some groups.
Right.
Even
Well,
grown adults, because people are like, my character ain't gonna let you have that. You're gonna fight me over this +2 ring? Wow. It's weird to me.
Right. That happened on, on a we play D&D for bachelor parties because that's how we roll.
Yeah, we're that
That
cool.
happened at one.
Did it?
Yeah. At
Trent's? Was it Trent's?
Trent's. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That butthole that somehow got invited and somehow got to I wouldn't say graced our table, more like cursed it.
Right. I'm taking the weapon. Yeah.
I'm taking it was a ring. It was a ring.
Oh, okay.
It was a ring. And
Ring
I'm
of
taking
power.
it and then running. And then he didn't get very far.
No.
We were all tired of him by then, and we pounded
Yeah.
the crap out of him.
Yeah.
You're paced.
Yeah. Wizard tactical nuke. Okay.
So
Yeah.
stupid. Anyway.
Yeah. What about metagame knowledge?
Oh,
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not mad about it, but when players use a lot of that, oh, it's a troll. We know it has fire. It can be burned by fire. Let's do it. That changes play at the table.
a little bit. And
A little bit.
can't. Okay, there's ways to get
I'm not
around
asking you not to do it. I'm just saying it does.
Right. There's ways to go around it. It's something that came up. I mentioned this before we started recording 10 hours ago. Jason, I sent some messages to Jason's podcast and about this very thing, metagame knowledge, or knowledge that your character, it fits this too, knowledge that your character wouldn't necessarily have.
Right.
And one of the things about it is once you have the knowledge in your head, you can't not know it.
No.
So you can roll randomly to see what you would do somehow, and you can just choose to ignore your knowledge and do something else, and that kind of negates your ability to guess the answer.
Right.
And,
if it's a puzzle or a challenge, a question that you guys got to figure out, you almost have to recuse yourself from being part of it.
right.
If your character knows that if your player knows, as a person, Joe knows all about homesteading,
Right.
but your rogue, who's only lived in Greyhawk his whole life, doesn't know a dang thing about the farm.
Right.
Are you with me?
Right. So yeah, metagame knowledge, or just knowledge your character wouldn't have, it's difficult unless you just decide it's no big deal. We'll
right.
just roll with it.
And you can. One where I would get a little prickly was what Jason brought up today. Let's say you're playing a game where you're playing, caveman era warriors fighting dinosaurs. And our buddy Dave, who's a PhD chemist, because the way I describe something, goes, what kind of rock is this? Okay, so it has this stuff. I could build gunpowder with this, and I could use tubes to do this and fire, and it would actually be relatively consistently good. And Dave could do all the chemistry to, say, hey, Randy, I can prove this to you. And I know nothing about chemistry.
Right.
How to drink liquids. And then, so he says that, he goes, my dude does this. And I'd be like, really? Your
caveman.
Big caveman dude who's the toughest dude in the party just does that. Well, yeah, I just happened to do it. He could say he could and just roll with it.
Right.
That's 10 kinds of stupid to me.
Yes.
At some point, it goes to the land of ridiculous. And I think that's what Jason was saying. And this does step on the toes of player agency. But I think when the player's agency turns the game into, what's the word I'm looking for? Not idiocy, but
It's wonky.
it just when he makes it ridiculous and unbelievable within the narrative,
Right.
if it's just really crazy, it's like, no. Well, physics, wouldn't I be able to do this? Dude, you're a barbarian. Do you really know that much about detailed physics? I mean, you might understand leverage. I get that. But we got friction. This friction for this particular rock would be this, and so I'd be able to do that crap and blah blah blah. I'm like, come on, dude. And sometimes if it's just like I want to dump this on this dude's head because it'd be cool, that's fine. But if it's an elaborate plan that's going to give you some humongous advantage that doesn't make any sense within the story, I think you got to call it out and say, no, sorry about your agency. But
right.
And that's part of the metagame knowledge too, is I think the agency part can be a thing that players feel like you're stepping on their toes. But
well, as all us folks sitting down at the table to play, there's a bit of a give and take. The players need to subsume a bit of them, their agency, whatever you want to call it, into the narrative that's being provided.
Right.
So, and as long as the DM isn't saying, oh, you wanted to go there? No, actually you want to go over here. And actually, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to do this. If you become a puppet for the DM to play with, then that's not really playing the game. So that's different too. So, but DM, but like a lot of this stuff, if you all know each other, it's easy for this to not even be an issue.
And even though I don't believe the DM is just a player, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. He's clearly the king. I would say the DM also makes choices. And if his choice is I'm going to make this story happen this way, we're going to put him on the rails, then that's not cool either. And but there's also a line where, look, guys, you said last week you're going to go explore the castle. This castle you've been looking for a long time. And then today you got a wild hair up your butt and you decided, no, we're going to follow the river and go see what's down south. Okay, but just so you know, I prepped the castle. I think that's a valid statement.
Sure.
Now, having said that, I don't think I would do that. Even if I did, I'd be like, okay, I'm feeling like I want the challenge. I'm going to have my trusty random table. I'm going to roll a couple things. It might be boring. The players chose to make this not interesting. You may have a couple of fights, but it'll be with random monsters. And you may or may not find something interesting. And we can do that for as long as you want to do that.
Right.
Every 3 or 4 days, I'll have a fight.
Buy a Froghemoth.
Yeah, I'm down with Froghemoth death.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. And I don't know if this was something that's old school or if it was a thing or did we make it a thing, but early on, there was a thing about the caller. There was the caller, right? Who got the D6 and rolled and said, I'm rolling for the group, for the initiative when you did group initiative. And then there was a quote unquote party leader.
Right.
Is that a thing that we talk about?
Not really.
I don't think so ever anymore.
However, while it's not a thing, it kind of still is.
Okay.
But not as a declared thing. It's more like some people are suited to take lead and some people prefer to not. Yes. And then those who prefer to take lead do.
Yep.
And if the folks that are, they might bump heads a little bit with other folks in the same group that may like to. Yeah. And then you've got your other folks who are willing to be led, even if just gently, Doesn't this sound good? Sure, let's go that way.
Other folks just aren't interested in making those decisions.
Yeah, some people like to take the lead, some people don't. Yeah. And then sometimes there's a little conflict, like I was just saying, with if there are multiple folks who like to take the lead.
Right.
So, but it's not like, okay, who's going to be the leader today or this week or with this group? We don't really do that. Oh.
And though it can come down to lower levels, like you're in the dungeon, go left, right, or straight. I've noticed that with our groups these days, when I say that, I get a lot of blank. Everybody just kind of when it's not.
I'm willing to just say, just pick a direction and go.
Yes, I wish you'd be willing to say we go left.
Huh?
And sometimes, and you have before, and so have some other people periodically. If it gets into a real stalemate.
Well, I'm trying to. I think people are used to it.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Not that I'm some leader, sent from God or whatever.
But you don't like sitting around.
No, I like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's just go left. Let's just go right.
Let's go.
Let's go straight. And now it's interesting when you explore the dungeon some, then you guys will be like, hey, we went left and we went right. We need that area we never finished off, especially since I tend to draw maps for you guys. I'm not much on a mapper. You guys weren't either, but honestly, I like to draw my little dungeons for you. You go, hey, we never explored that area. That helps me and you. Let's go back and go that way. Because you guys are often, you're completists. You want to make sure you go check the carry and crawler room so somebody can
especially if we haven't found the thing we're trying to find. Especially. Or if we have found the thing we're trying to find, but really nothing else.
Yeah, you're like, we didn't get any magic items. Now Randy's stingy, but he's bound to have at least a +1 sword somewhere.
Right.
Let's find it. Even he wouldn't put nothing there. In the back of my head, I'm like, oh crap, I guess I better put it in the next room. I didn't put nothing in this adventure.
Yeah.
I don't think about magic items. I don't. I'm guilty. Yeah. And I think that kind of thing. Now I think groups that do that designate a leader. I'm not sure if anybody does these days, if that's really a thing. That would probably change play. I don't know. I guess not. Because even when we would do that back in the day, it didn't matter. People that spoke, people that I'm the leader. Okay, you're the leader. And they're like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
I thought I was the leader. I know. That's hilarious.
Suck as leader. Stop.
Oh, this is a big one. And this has caused a lot of ruffled feathers. The sneaky guy or the keep secrets guy. That definitely can have an effect on the player.
Sure.
I'm the rogue that has his own little side deal going on. Some people don't care. My wife and me in particular, sometimes I can get put off, especially if I'm stealing from the party guy.
Yeah.
But just keeping too many secrets sometimes, if you're playing a shady dude, I guess because we've had characters that have turned on the party, you're kind of like, oh man. And for me, it's like, I just don't want to deal with this. It's not that I'm like, oh my God, I'm afraid you might kill me. It's, I don't want to deal with this.
Right. Especially if the secret is like, you knew that and you didn't tell us. We could have just walked right through, or we could have, easily defeated this monster, but you knew, you wouldn't say anything. Why?
Yeah.
It's what my character would do.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, exactly. But I think just the idea though of keeping secrets is not a problem, but I've often wondered, because I've heard this as a choice, that keeping secret from characters is fine, but not from players. I know you don't like the idea, you can't really separate what your player and character knows, but if it's only a secret, like, what if my secret, and I get some of that can matter, but if it's something that's not detrimental to the party, just something like, my guy spent 5 years in the prisons of Greyhawk, and I'm not proud of it. And I don't want anybody to know. I was actually ran with a group of brigands, and we ended up killing this merchant. I didn't kill him, but I was there when we stole from him, and I spent 5 years for accomplice to murder, and they don't really like me in Greyhawk. If I told you guys that was the case, but you didn't know, would you like that better if you knew, because you know it's coming, or would you rather that be a surprise? Because that surprise may not be that bad. You know what I'm saying? If I said Joe knows, but his character doesn't know.
That surprise may not be that bad.
Yeah.
There are surprises.
Yep.
That can matter.
Yep.
As personally, even though I'm not terribly fond of them, I would prefer don't tell me.
Okay.
That way I can play better.
I agree. Play more honestly, I think, and you would enjoy it more, especially if you happen to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That'd be cool. Oh, I know your secret, Randy. What? I heard you were in jail. Oh, okay. Huh.
I don't even want to know that you even have a secret.
Gotcha.
As a player.
I think I lean I think I lean toward that. And the only time it might be a problem if you're like, the secret is I'm actually in league with the necromancer and I'm going to turn on the party. Now, if the DM sets it up and the player says, I want to do that, and we've done that, so it'd be a little overdone. But if you do it once in a campaign, and I would tell the player, look, I probably wouldn't let the player, I might let the player just do it. Would it be worse if you did this, the guy who's secretly in league with the bad guy?
I think it's a bad situation because
okay,
the player is most certainly going to have knowledge the character wouldn't have.
Okay.
So putting in a ringer is
problematic.
It's one the best thing to do, I think, is for the DM to keep that secret even from the player who's the ringer until it's time to activate the cell.
Right, just so that it's more natural, and because really what we're hoping for is that he dies.
Right.
I mean, to me, if a player wanted to do that, I would say, well, just so you know, as a DM, I actually hope they kill your character. You know that, right? That when you turn, they're shocked, but then they kill you. If you're doing something really heinous.
Right.
You know.
I mean, if it's a group that has a more tolerance for conflict within the party,
right,
and the DM approaches a player, after a while and says, look, you have been helping the bad guy for the last couple of months now. Nobody knows.
Right.
And blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And now it's time for you to make your move. Are you cool with that?
Right.
Or you could approach it, differently, but.
Well, you could say, would you be cool with actually having been a plant the last 3 months?
And it really works with characters who have shady backgrounds anyway.
Right. Do you, and that's something out of character. Do you think out of the game groups, especially if you're just, I think that probably would be worth discussing.
Right.
Do we want to have intra-party conflict, especially to where swords could be drawn?
Right.
I think some players with new groups, and this feels connected a little bit, not necessarily to safety tools, but under a session zero discussion, new players at a table, some people do that. I told the story of that guy that was testing me out as a DM. His group, he said, there were always intra-party conflict. I'm not really into that.
Not really.
No, I don't feel it's very fun.
The environment usually gives you plenty of conflict already. I know some people will say, well, it makes them feel like it's more real.
Yeah.
Somehow.
I guess. I just don't want to play. I guess I just want to have a good time, and that ends up not being fun. Somebody's feelings get hurt. And what if the plant or the guy that is causing conflict literally kills another character? I literally died from a guy that was a companion of mine. I mean, I get it. That's a story that can happen.
Yeah.
I didn't come here to tell that, especially my 9th level paladin. I didn't want to die. I didn't care if I die at the hands of a demon or a powerful orc lord. I don't want to die at the hands of Joe's wizard. That's poop.
Right.
On purpose, Yeah, it's just not, I think it's a thing we don't enjoy as part of it. What about stealing from the party? That's a thing too. I mean, the rogue goes ahead. I don't mind if the rogue steals a bauble or two, but you've seen them. I think it's just as bad. I want to steal the ring protection plus 2, the magical ring. I'm going to steal it and go to town and get it identified.
Yeah, I prefer not. That's our thing.
Yeah, I think that's an our thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other things you wanted to? Well, let's hit on this, because is it out of character? And I want to hit Jason's statement about charm person and the idea that if the DM makes the decision, I'm going to be, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I've said that before.
Yeah.
If you're going to use, time stop on my villains at high level, I'm going to use it on you.
Right.
If you're going to use disintegration on my villains, I'm going to use that on you.
Right.
And I'm kind of, my opinion is the DM, it is what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Oh yeah.
Get charm personed, you lose a little bit of your agency.
Sure.
Now, I'm down with what Jason said. I mean, I would be comfortable, especially with you, if I said the necromancer charms your paladin, and I'm like, dude, you see him as your best friend, Joe, act like it.
Right.
And I would trust that you wouldn't cheese it and go, well, I go down the steps and gather some potatoes while they're attacking him.
Right.
That kind of move.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's kind of stuff I would have fun with too.
Yeah.
And if it's like puppet or dominate where you have total control, you say, yeah, go get them. All right.
Yeah,
I know
right.
your armor class is blah. I've seen you use this all the time. So blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, that could be fun. I don't think that's a problem at all. So I also don't think player choice is inviolate.
Agreed.
Because I don't know if I mentioned this on or off while we're recording or not.
Okay.
But there's a lot of things that are even more agency stealing than charming.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. The turning to stone, you said.
Turn to stone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing anything. So the DM playing, running the monsters.
Yep.
Monster has whatever they have for attacks or spells or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
None of that is beyond the pale.
No.
Especially if everybody sitting at the table knows, you're all playing D&D. We all know the things that can happen. So if you get charmed, you get charmed. I don't even care if the DM says, "Oh, you're charmed." I'm running you now, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you just
I would rather not
go sit in the corner. Go sit in the corner.
Yeah. You're paralyzed, like happened to Phil. You're out.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, for using whatever the DM has at their disposal, none of that is violating player agency.
No.
I think player agency is blown up anyway. As long as you and the DM have a good understanding and the choices you make are meaningful for your character.
Yep.
Everything, who cares? Everything else is on the table.
And choosing to fight the Medusa already.
Yeah.
I mean, you're choosing, I could be turned to stone. And a lot of folks will be like, well, that's just not fun. And mechanics in 13th Age and other narrative games, not narrative games, but other games where you get multiple saves, even in 5e every round. I think that's namby-pamby.
Yeah.
Because you're going to make it pretty quick. Well, I can't do anything. Well, you know what? If you get paralyzed, you don't get to do too much. Right. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. You sure don't cry if you do it to the monster.
Sure.
Don't hurt your feelings none. Oh, we paralyzed the dragon. He's easy pickings. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, it's all about me.
I get, but to be fair, it's the narrative thing. The new school, I want to tell a cool story. It's not cool if I'm not doing something, or it's maybe I'm bored because I'm not playing the game that I came to play. Yeah, you are. But part of this is some things that happen suck. Maybe you shouldn't be playing this game if it bothers you that happens.
Right.
Maybe you should be playing 5e or 13th.
Right. However, I think in a game that has high risk, there should be high reward.
Absolutely.
So if
that directed at me,
huh?
Are you telling me? Joe has said that multiple times recently. I think you're telling me I'm not giving away enough crap.
Well, it's not for the mud sword thing because we've only played twice. So that.
But in general, yes.
In general, you're a bit stingy.
That's accurate, actually, quite accurate. So, anything else you want to comment about out of character? Anything you thought of special that we should mention?
I don't think so. I think we hit it all pretty good. There is maybe something to player agency if you really care about that stuff at your table. Again, playing with people solves a lot of problems that might arise at other tables where you don't know each other very well, and you're stepping on each other's toes during the game and blah, blah, blah. That can still happen at a table of people who know each other well. Yes. But those, in that case, it's generally not too hard to, resolve. But when you don't know each other very well, player agency might be something that rears its ugly head. People might cry about whatever they want to cry about. Yeah. That just comes from not knowing or not trusting the DM or the other
Yeah.
players very much. A lot of this, this is, I think, cool stuff to talk about. But I think discussions like this can devolve into, I should be able to play the game I want to play, whatever.
Whenever I'm playing.
Whenever I'm playing.
Yeah. I guess for me, like, I have no issue. I really have no issue with player agency. And what I even talked about that scenario where I prepped the keep, but you guys decide to follow the river down south. Inside, I'm a little annoyed. But the truth is, right now, especially, and I've been like this. Actually, I did it a lot even when we were younger, because you guys, I made a lot of crazy decisions, and I just went with it.
Right.
And I would rather go with it. I mean, if I had a chance, would I try to lure you back to the keep? I would, but I won't force it. It won't be a railroad. You will see the tracks appear as you're walking down the river. Hey, you can get back on the train if you want. You don't have to though, but I would love to do that because I got a dragon I want to kill the whole party with. Please get to the keep.
I'm
So,
going to put Hill Giant here.
Yeah. You can
Off
fight
the
him.
tracks.
Right. You can fight him if you want.
Yeah.
Well, I'll roll. You get to kill 2 goblins and get 2 coppers. We're 8th
Yeah.
level. Yeah.
Yay.
Well, goblins are still around here, even though you're 8th level. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
So, yeah. All right.